It is the 4th of April, 2019. WIKISPEED Standup, and I shouldn't have touched my nose. Anyway, go ahead, Lauren.
Okay, this is Lauren Salter, Gabriel Island, British Columbia, Canada. And this past week, I did the first receipt, the first charitable receipt from WIKISPEED. Was a little labor intensive and funky, but we'll probably maybe talk about outcomes of that or how that went, and did some more watching of reading and kind of peripheral subjects and so forth. But because of that, yeah. And so that's kind of the past week. Coming week, I'm hoping to do the tax report, but I don't know. I'll project that I'll get half the charitable annual report done, and I just started actually turning my notes. And so that yeah, that's another thing I did. I just looked at, but I haven't actually got it copied into an actual editor. My what you would call it. It was just a structure for object oriented for the LRW, but it's not a Python program yet. I saw Michael's notes, and what else? That's like coming weekend blocks are okay. The water went off. I think that was our last Thursday. That was before this week, but the water is actually that's a block removed, but another block is financial now, paying for the fixing the wires that were going to the pump in the well. And let's see, in taxes, I'm working on, but I've made progress working with the accountant, and I'm ahead of where I was in before. So some blocks removed, still blocks, health, family health, and so forth. But oh yeah, one other thing that was sort of accomplished this week. I talked to someone from our Linux meeting, and he wants me to talk to some. I was showing him the mesh bots, and he wants me to connect with some local high school students who are working on a lot of hardware, kind of open source or maker hardware projects. So that's that was one more thing, and that's it for stand-up part.
Okay, it's Michael Wolchuk in Saskatoon. I didn't get a whole lot of WIKISPEED stuff done. I got the meeting recording posted. I think I posted one little video on the truck, the remote control truck, and did a lot of investigation into Python and MakeSmith CNC. I posted the link for Lauren to take a look at the ground control, I think is what it's called, which looks to be a fairly decent size Python program. I'm not sure how good the conventions are, but it's certainly something to look through. I'm going to be looking at it here later this evening. And it didn't dawn on me that that creating a object and doing a structure were kind of one and the same thing. Local variables inside the object appear to be the structure of the object. So anyway, that was a bit of a discovery process for me. Lots of troubleshooting on the CNC. Found out that line numbers aren't processed because they did their own version of Mach 3 software called ground control for the Maslow. I don't know whether the Maslow ground control software will run as it is, or whether I have to make some changes. And I found out that the servo for my Z-axis was for X-axis was creeping whenever it was being sent 1.5 millisecond pulses. It was actually moving clockwise and causing me all sorts of trouble because I couldn't figure out how come it was moving. That's about it for that. Learned how to fork the code in GitHub, and I didn't install GitHub locally. I just downloaded a copy because I didn't really want to mess with stuff. And blocks, nothing to speak of. Trying to get other stuff done. It's getting a little warmer here, so the snow is mostly gone, and my wife's honey-do list is becoming higher priority. And for next week, going to be working, try and get that CNC machine off my bench. So try and get it to a point where it actually runs with the ground control software. And I'd like to try do something with it. The Python software, hopefully we can get it to a point where it actually reads from a file and writes out to a file, or it writes out to the screen at least. Post it so that Lauren or anybody else can take a peek at it and give me some feedback. It's a whole lot easier to change at the beginning than it is later on. And I guess that's about it for me.
Okay. Okay, so the retro, I'm going to give myself a 8. Not everything I would have wanted to, but I did respond. I think I got the deadline for the receipt, and really, yeah, that'll be crosstalk too. I'm just thinking about the going forward if donations start pouring in, which we hope, and then so it's a 10 for the team, and a process improvement. Actually, I kind of maybe I should we should focus on Wikifactory. I don't know if that's a process improvement, but it appears that people are kind of joining and there's some stuff happening there. So maybe that would be a good focus. I don't know if it's I think it's a process improvement kind of a thing, because it's a new thing. It's a wiki. It's an idea of documenting that's kind of alive and current, can be alive and current, given it reflects what's going on. So that is my process improvement, and that's it for me.
Okay. Retrospective. I got more stuff done than I was intending to, or I targeted to, but it wasn't all on topic. I'm not sure whether that should be a 9 or a 10. For the team, I can't go above 8 because there's still only 2 of us on the stand-up. And process improvement, if we want to work on Wikifactory, that I can add some of that stuff to the backlog. A couple of forums were suggested by Christina, as well as a frequently asked questions. I think I have some stuff to put in a frequently asked questions, but not really on the LRW project. So we'll have to see if we can come up with something. And I guess anything that we can do to get more people on the call and more people involved would be good. I believe that's it for stand up. You had some crosstalk?
Yeah. First of all, yeah, I already kind of mentioned it that my my notes were that I posted were just brainstorming on possible objects, not Python code. So so I'm working. I kind of got up my my VirtualBox Ubuntu environment, and I'm hoping to actually do that this week. So that goes on the list to turn those notes into a Python program, and look at the ground control. I have a question about ground control. So is ground control to do with electrical connections or David Bowie?
Neither. It takes, if you go online and you find G code that has line numbers and stuff in it,
right,
and you use that as an input to ground control, it will take the line numbers off and feed it out to your Arduino one line at a time and wait for it to be done. It prints G ready or ready or something like that.
I got it.
Then,
okay.
And then it feeds the next line and the next line, and there's a little graphic representation on the screen of what the machine should be doing. So it's if you get an Arduino and every string that you get over the USB, you just say ready, it will just continue to feed instructions one line at a time.
Okay. Because normally you kind of feed a static program over, right? You load a program into it.
You can. There's a program called Mach 3, which is kind of the standard. It appears. It costs you about $75, and it is apparently used by a lot of hobbyists that does the same thing. But it assumes a few things about your Arduino and how it controls, and the Maslow and the Makesmith CNC don't do those, all of them. It also assumes no feedback, which there is feedback on the Maslow. So
okay.
Anyway, so yeah. I think it's, as a graphic interface, I think it's probably a decent example.
Cool.
As in terms of the receipt, it accepted, like the website accepted the receipt. It didn't give me any errors. I don't know whether they'll give me an error when they come back, but it went in before the deadline, so it should. Even
cool.
if they ask us for a different receipt, they should match it.
Okay. Cool.
And,
so I mean, we did talk about being paranoid. So my concern was that I just wanted to verify that the PayPal transaction number. I don't know whether that's an appropriate thing to put on this. I thought it was good in terms of it has some kind of status as something that is like a proof. But on the other hand, I don't know if you can use it. If you can look up your own transactions, as long as you're only allowed to look up your own transactions via transaction number on PayPal. It'd be okay, but I couldn't verify that in the time. And
I don't actually know, because I only have the one account with PayPal, so I can't log into a different account and try and access it. So.
Yeah, I did kind of a Google search, and it was ambiguous as to what the status was. So I'd have to do a little more. Yeah.
It doesn't look like you need the transaction numbers. In fact, what it appears that it's looking for is the total in Canadian funds, the total in U.S. funds, and the charitable organization number, and that's pretty
Which
much
brings
always.
me to the fact that I want a database. If this, you know, if there are substantial numbers of donations, then it needs a database, particularly for these kind of monthly things. And I used to use those monthly things. They were really cool because you could pretty much name anything in the world with a number, with a number in Canada or the U.S. And I donated to. Have you heard of Remote Access Medical? This is kind of a maker thing because their ad is, if you're a physician or a healthcare practitioner, like a nurse, how would you like to fly a 40-year-old refurbished plane into dangerous jungle locations and jump out of the plane?
I don't imagine they got too many volunteers on that one.
Actually, they do really well. They were the first ones in Haiti in the earthquake.
Wow.
They just got a plane in and they parachuted in, made a field, and landed their plane. And the background is, I don't know if you ever watched Wild Kingdom with Marlon Perkins.
Way back when I was a kid.
Yeah. So there was a guy on it, a British guy, really big guy, and they used to have a team of like 12 people catching one rhinoceros, and he would catch the other rhinoceros. And his name was Stan. It was a great, huge guy. So they showed him on his own ranch in South America. He was actually a ranch hand in South America catching a giant armadillo. And so I put that, we had the same thing at my job in Arizona. And I put that down and donated to it. And I also asked other people to donate for a communal event donation for it. Anyway, he was a rancher in a remote part of South America, or rather, he was actually to start with anyway, a ranch hand, and there was no medical service. You were on your own, and so he found the need for that. So when he stopped being a ranch hand and had a little profile from working on the program, he started this charity where they buy old planes and recruit people. So a little Doctors Without Borders, like a little element of danger, probably not quite as well. They pretty much go into places other people don't go in with whatever equipment they can. And he also got publicity a few years ago when he ran a clinic in somewhere like this Virginia or somewhere, a poor state in the States. And he said, we got people there, same as we get in the third world, people without coverage. And so he ran one of his, what he normally does in the jungle or in remote areas, he ran it in the States, and they had a huge lineup of people lining up for free medical care. And that got quite a bit of publicity.
Yeah, probably embarrassed the crap out of the governor too.
Yeah. They were saying, no, that's not. They tried to deny it exists, but there were pictures of thousands of people lined up.
I guess.
But I digress.
I don't know how many donations we get. I don't know how many monthly things there are. I don't have access to the PayPal account, so I have no idea.
Yeah. No, that's a fun kind of a thing to figure out. There's a ton of stuff online for charitable organizations how to do it. I know that Salesforce. I looked this up for somebody because my son worked at a nonprofit architectural institute in Rome, and they used it was this really old software that only ran on Mac, or it was really, really funky, but a whole lot of places used it and were like totally committed to it because they hadn't, they didn't have the time or the expertise to update. And Salesforce is a commercial company that provides something like ERP, right? Enterprise systems, accounting, and everything else. But they offer a nonprofit package, as does some of the other a database and accounting and enterprise softwares. Anyway, there's a wealth of stuff around. What I'd like is a real database like MySQL or something, so that the total, like you can do an annual total easily, and that kind of goes together with.
You don't want it to be a whole lot of effort, right?
Yeah. And I mean, I should have been able to, if I'd put it in a spreadsheet, which I didn't. I would have been able to have the total on it in Canadian. The total in American was easy, but you need to, I know in Canada we need the total in Canadian, and that is not straightforward.
Nope. Okay. Since nobody else asked you for receipts, I'm assuming that nobody is, or it's not well known that they can ask for receipts. So we might want to publish that somehow.
Yep, and might remind Joe if he runs into people who ask, because that's kind of where it originally came from. Right. Yeah. So anyway, I want to do that report and see how it's like all the other stuff. The basics look really simple, but then there was like Schedule 1 and Schedule 2 and everything. So it's probably initially looks like an hour's work, and it ends up being 4 to 6 hours work or something like that. So
that's usually the way it works.
Yeah.
Nothing is ever simple in government terms.
Anyway, I was wondering what you thought of the. I think I sent you the same person or the same kind of theme as that mesh box. There was an article before that about this company. Had a name, Particle, and they make mesh controllers, or controllers that are probably, I mean, basically you could probably mesh many controllers, but kind of mesh-ready controllers.
Isn't that the one that they used for the Swarm, or no?
Yeah, for the Swarm. But before it, there was another whole article on this company that's Particle that's putting out these mesh boards. So it was a bit of a promotion and everything, but that's kind of their thing. And if it's of a lot of interest in that community thing I was thinking of here, the network that could survive an earthquake or a loss of the internet. So instead of robots, this would be like communications, and I think mesh is actually known more for that, because there's been a lot of initiatives for city. There's one in New York, but local kind of internet via mesh. So that's actually an older kind of a concept, and then it being used for hardware robots.
The store and forward where it kind of passes on. It's actually kind of goes all the way back to the BBS when you posted a message on one board, and midnight they dialed up the interweb and passed it on.
Yeah. No, I remember the transition. I got it at work, 1989 and 90. At work, there was this brilliant and you would say difficult guy at work. He had a there was no web, but he had a node. He had the health department. He had a government department online, all on his own. In about 1989, he was a Unix, BSD Unix freak, and And so he did a little class, and he said, so our website is Gavunka, but he has a thick accent. So I thought he was saying Gabunka, and then he just cracked up when I told him what I thought it was. Until I saw it written down, I had no idea what he was talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And then simultaneously, my son was on a BBS, and it was a communications BBS. And once a week, they went on the internet and got messages. So you could write anywhere in the world, but it was about as fast as the post office. 2 weeks later, you could get an answer back.
Yeah, actually, when I went to university, we had Digital Equipment Corporation VAXs. So they had something called, it wasn't DECNATE, it was BitNet, maybe? It was the universities connected together. So you could actually email back and forth between the universities. It was kind of cool. But there was no security on anything.
I got in trouble at the university in Saskatchewan when I worked there because I sent a report via a messaging app on the Xerox computers on a deck writer kind of a thing. So I was late with a report getting it from Saskatoon to Regina. So I sent it over as a message. And the computer science prof said, the computer is not for sending messages. Or it's not for sending text, stuff. So later, Computer World?
Magazine, of course, yeah.
Yeah. So around 2000, there was a column based on things people submitted called the Shark Tank, not the current Shark Tank, but not the TV Shark Tank. But it was a column called the Shark Tank, and they would send you a T-shirt if you sent them an item about your job. So I sent them that story and got a T-shirt.
Yeah, I printed out my first resume on a dot matrix printer. What's it called? A Deck Writer 100 or something. You had to kind of squinch your eyes together in order to read it because the dots were so far apart.
I say when I go to Linux meetings, people end up reminiscing about this and that. Paper tape, how about paper tape? And giant discs that took a lot of strength, a large person to lift the disc out.
The PDP-11, the disk drive was 1 megabyte, and it looked like a filing cabinet. And there was actually 200 pounds of concrete at the bottom of it so that it didn't get tipped over.
Yeah, right.
And there was programs that you could load to make it dance. It would just get rocking back and forth.
Okay. Yeah, I remember a tech who installed a bunch of IBM chiclet. No, that was the home IBM, but he installed a bunch of IBM when IBM first came out with a cheap PC and the government bought it. And so they bought a few hundred at least, and he was installing them, and they were brand new from IBM and they're real low end. And he was sort of bragging about, he said some percentage, 5% or 2% of them were burnt out as soon as he hooked them up because they had no protection. The serial cable went straight into the board.
I think those were the PC Juniors.
Yeah.
They had a horrible chiclet keyboard.
Oh yeah, no, that's the home one. No, this was a business one, and the issue was that the peripherals you plugged in, and I don't know if it was the power supply or what, but anyway, there wasn't much protection for the board and the chips.
Okay. I don't remember IBM ever doing anything that was low end or cheap. If it may have been built cheaply, but they still charged a lot for it.
Yeah, yeah. No, I don't mean that. Right, yeah. Well, yeah. I'm really into. I'm gonna check out that Python program and everything. It's oh man, I read about something else. Oh yeah, it was
No,
when I was looking at board.
It doesn't use the latest version of Python. I think it's 2.7 something.
That's fine. That's fine. The so I was also reading over the board. I think I sent it to you a few months ago. It just came out in their issue, probably a little more enhanced. It's like the rundown on boards on 100 and some board controllers and boards, Raspberry Pis and Beagle boards and everything. So I read they had features. They had some highlights of it. So I read some of those, and some of them were talking about further kind of development with Python. So take a look at it. I was, the main thing was it was just kind of more I can't remember. I kind of skimmed through it all, but it was just a confirmation that there's a lot of stuff going on with Python, and still I'm seeing jobs that say, okay, for statistics we want SAS, the thing that I use, we want R, which is an open source for that program. And like Tableau, people want, it doesn't do stats particularly, it does data visualization. And Python. Because Python has where you can really control, but also robust data handling. That's the reason people use the data thing that I did, was that by default, it handled rows of data. So if you said, something plus something, by default, it did that for every row of the data, which databases do and so forth. But it had you could cycle through in various ways. And of course, with SQL, you can run data thing against itself, taking different kind of views of them. But Python has ways of handling data so you can write programs. And that's the disadvantage of packaged programs like R and SAS, is that when you get statisticians, they want to write their own stuff and modify it. And so
they want to understand exactly what's happening so that they don't misinterpret the data.
Or they read a paper and they say, I wanted to try that. So So it's kind of the convenience versus the other thing. But anyway, that's as far as I kind of understand, because I tend to be a dilettante or a generalist. I learn a little bit of each thing. Like you were saying, I learned to be dangerous in each area.
I think Python's going to be a good programming language to have under your belt, and it looks like it's pretty powerful, and the libraries look insane.
Yeah,
you can get a library to do pretty much anything.
Yeah.
So
and I mean that was
the popularity, right?
Yeah, and you see, initially Perl was a little more popular because I don't know if it got started earlier, and Perl was the libraries. The libraries was the big thing, but Python was coming along around then too. And I read a little bit about Van Rossum, the guy who started it. So he presented it at a Linux I was at in 96 or 97, I think. But he was, now I'm trying to remember. I think it was a mathematical set language, and I can't remember what it was, but he wanted to take off from that, but do more things with it. So, but it's very mathematical from the get-go.
Yeah, well, some of their examples are adding complex numbers?
You know, the course I took, which I still really recommend, my son finished it, and he's kind of loaded up and everything, but it's a little bit addictive. That thing I told you about. Let me just. I'm just going to take a look. It's on my screen, so hang on. The name escapes me. Solo Learn, which is a kind of a sad commentary on how we learn now. It's called Solo Learn.
Yeah.
And it's tough. But it starts with the first lesson is, you know, complex numbers versus and how to handle negatives. It's like the most kind of arcane, and it's a beginner's course, but it's the most arcane mathematical stuff. But it's clever because for beginners, that's really confusing in programming languages, is the data and the mathematical types of the numbers.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Anything else you want to talk about?
No, I'm all talked out, and I really am keen to code. I want to code.
Okay.
Okay. Talk to you later.
Looks like we are just about to lose the connection here, so
okay.
I will say goodbye.
Bye now.
Talk to you next week.